Hello everyone, welcome to this session. In this session, we are solving CAT 2024 Slot 1 VARC. This is reading comprehension passage number 1. Before going into it, I just want to read the first para, take a glimpse of what this passage is going to be about, and if it interests me, I'll move forward. Okay, let's read the first para. Landing in Australia, the British colonists weren't much impressed with the small bodied, slender snooted marsupial called bandicoots. The muzzle, which is much too long, give them an air exceedingly stupid. One naturalist noted in 1805. They nicknamed one type the zebra rat because of its black striped rump. Now, one thing which I have understood from this first para, they're going to talk about this rat-like creature, bandicoots. I think the species is that of a marsupials, right? So and they are using a couple of names for the same species, so they're calling the same bandicoot a zebra rat also somewhere because of the patterns, the zebra like patterns. Okay, there is a impression of the rat like creature, which is it is small bodied and it has a slender snoot. Snooting basically is a tendency of putting your nose into somebody else's business, which I, of course, don't do and wouldn't encourage anyone to do. So, slender snooted is basically, I think, thin noses, right? So, and again, muzzle. The muzzle is much too long. So, it's also again talking about the same nose. So, slender snooted, this is again something which we can keep with us just as a, you know, sort of a distinguishing factor for this bandicoot, the zebra rat, right? Um, so if you are someone like me who would want to write something, for the first para, I would just write, it's an introduction to Bandicoot, okay? And you should be you shouldn't be writing a lot, you should be just writing general ideas. So Bandicoot, an intro to Bandicoot, okay, intro to Bandicoot, which is a rat-like creature, okay? And you don't even need to read I mean, you don't have to like go back and read. It's just there to keep a memory aid. Okay, let's read ahead. The second para. Silly looking or not, though the zebra rat, the smallest bandicoot. So I know that the zebra rat is the smallest bandicoot, more commonly known today as the western barred bandicoot. Now again, they're giving another name. So this is again an interesting part. I would like to highlight this, that they're calling the same zebra rat as the western barred bandicoots. They are they have exhibited a genius for survival in the harsh outback where its ancestors had persisted for some 26 million years. Its births were triggered by rainfalls in the bone dry desert. It carried its breath mint sized babies in backward facing pouch so mothers could forage for food and dig shallow camouflaged shelters. Now, there are certain things that you should keep with you. How is it that I am taking the main points, or let's say, how do I generally, I don't know, you can use my technique. How is it that I take the main points out of it? Any general examples that they are giving is not important. What is important is that when they're giving information or facts, for example, the last line talks about that they carry their mint-sized babies on a pouch so the mothers could forage for food, dig shallow and camouflage shelter. So basically, the mothers are carrying their offsprings, babies in a pouch like this thing. I think we can relate to it like a kangaroo, how a kangaroo basically carries a baby with it. Maybe not in a similar fashion, but I hope you get the point, right? So the second point, the second paragraph, perhaps I would just add that the second para is talking about maybe more description. So just description, nothing in general, like what is the zebra rat bandicoot and stuff, and that's it. Let's go to the next para. Still, these adaptation did not prepare the Western Barren Bandicoot for the colonial era transformation of its ecosystem. Now I think they are, relating the first para to the third para. First para talked about the British colonization, and now they are sort of, attaching. So there is a linkage. First para, third para. The Western Barren for the colonial this thing, they were not prepared. They have been there for 26 million years, but they were not prepared for the colonial transformations that they are about to see onto their ecosystem. Particularly the onslaught of the imported British animals from the cattle, the rabbit, the damaged delicate desert. Okay, I'll have to pause. From cattle and rabbits that damage delicate desert vegetation to ravenous house cats that soon developed a taste for bandicoots. Now, basically, if you have understood, these creatures were not present. The rabbit and the feral or the ravenous house cat, the cats were not present as a part of their natural ecosystem. They were brought in by the Britishers. So these western barred bandicoots, they were not prepared for these things. So maybe you are understanding where this passage is going. They're going into the territory of extinction or something like that, right? And it indeed, in the next line, itself they're saying several of the dozen odd bandicoot species went extinct because of this external factor, I guess. And by the 40s, the western barred bandicoot, whose original range stretched across much of the continent, persisted only on two predator free island in the Shark Bay of Australia's western coast. Now we don't need to, let's say, mark everything into yellow, but you have to understand that this is because of the colonial this thing. The western barred bandicoot went extinct, and 40s. The dozen odd bandicoot species. There were many bandicoot species. Okay, so you can understand it like there are several types of there is a monkey, there is a chimpanzee, there's a gorilla. So these are the different types of species, right? So one of the species, many of the species, dozen odd bandicoot species went extinct, and the one that we are particularly talking about, the western barred bandicoot, they basically, which stretch across much of the continent, persisted now only on a free island in Shark Bay, that is on the western coast of Australia. So basically, from description, how the passage number 3 is explaining me that uh, what went on, or maybe I can also use a similar word like, you know, uh, from description, I could write what went wrong. What went wrong? Okay, I don't really need to make sense why I'm writing para 1, para 2 as description and para 3 as what went wrong. Like, what is the point? I have to go back to the passage. I know this thing. I sometimes I may write some, longer sentences, but then the point is that this is fairly readable passage. So I know if I can go back to the passage, I will get my details. So fact-based passages are very much okay. You will be able to understand it in that sense. Now let's read ahead, right? Our isolated fauna had, now they are giving some quotation, so we'll have to read that carefully. They say our isolated fauna. When they say isolated fauna, obviously some Australian person is saying that simply not been exposed to these predators, says Reese Pedler, an ecologist with the Wild Desert Conservation Program. So now what went wrong, and possibly extinction. Okay, extinction. And now I think they will also talk about the restoration. So let's read ahead and let's see if they are talking about the restorations. Now, wild deserts is using descent. Now I don't know what this wild deserts is. It could be an organization, it could be actually a wild deserts, but let's just take it at face value. Wild desert is using descendants of those few thousand island survivors called the Shark Bay Bandicoots. Okay, in a new effort to seed the mainland bandicoot revival. So they are basically looking at the revival now, because the colonial this thing, looking at the revival. They've imported 20 bandicoots to preserve on the edge of the Starzelensky Desert. Starzaletsky Desert in the remote interior of New South Wales. This sanctuary is a challenging place, desolate much of the year. Desolate is a good word. With one of the world's most mercurial rainfall pattern, relentless droughts followed by sudden drenching floods. I think they are saying that, I read it somewhere over there, that the bandicoots are basically, they give birth when it is a rainy season, something like that. So maybe that is perhaps one of the reasons why they have taken this place as the sanctuary. Okay, but it is a challenging place. Okay, desolate much of the year. So again, I'm convinced that this part of my para, this para number 4, this is para number 4, is talking about restoration. Okay. The imported bandicoots occupy 2 fenced exclosures. Interesting. They're not talking about enclosures. While I was reading it the first time, I read it like enclosure, but it's exclosures. Let's understand what an exclosure is. The imported bandicoot occupy 2 fenced exclosure cleared of invasive rabbits, courtesy of the peddler's sheepdog, and of feral cats, which slunk off once the rabbit disappeared. First of all, let's please understand, the whatever is written inside the bracket is of no consequence to me, so I would not pay too much attention while reading it. There are people who would get confused, like, sir, you're not reading it. I don't read because, if I need I will read it, but I will not pay attention to it. So the reason for exclosure, there's a question also on this part. The imported bandicoot occupied the fence exclosures cleared off of invasive rabbits and of feral cats. A third fenced area contained the program's wild training zone. Okay, this is interesting, where 2 other rare marsupials, billybees, a larger type of bandicoot, and mulgaras, a somewhat fearsome fuzzball, known for sucking. Okay, hold on. 2 other type of marsupials, billybees, a larger type of bandicoot, and mulgaras. So they basically are keeping another third fenced area that contains the wild training program, but they have suddenly, without any information, they have added another thing. Okay, if you see the sudden change, there's just a comma. A somewhat fearsome fuzzball, known for sucking the brains out of the prey, currently share a terrain with the controlled number of cats. They are sharing the terrain with controlled number of cats, learning to evade them. So they are in a way not completely clear the cats, but just control the numbers. It's unclear whether shark bay bandicoot, which are perhaps more, perhaps even more predator naive. Naive is somebody who is basically somebody who does not have a danger sign within. So, kids, let's say, they're not prone to, alerting themselves towards danger. So naive like that. Okay. So you wouldn't call a adult naive, but you would call a kid naive, right? So, which are perhaps even more predator naive than their now extinct mainland bandicoot keen, will be able to make that kind of breakthrough. So it's a kind of a this thing, that whether they will be able to survive in these environments because they are predator naive. Okay, so the ones who have already survived. So this is again, I think, just adding to the restoration process. So I would just say restoration plus plus. Okay, I don't have anything to write in that. Let's read the last para that says, for now though, a recent surge of rainfall has led to a bandicoot joey boom, raising the wild desert population to about 100. Now this is a good news. So something good has happened because of the surge in the rainfall. They are they are seeing the bandicoot joey boom, raising the wild desert population to about 100, with other sanctuaries adding to that number. There are also signs of rebirth of the landscape itself. This is an interesting line. Please pay attention to this line. There are signs of rebirth in the landscape itself. How is that landscape rebirth happening? Let's read ahead. Okay. So there are signs of rebirth in the landscape with their constant digging. Who are digging it? The bandicoots. Remember, the rat-like creatures. With their constant digging, the bandicoot trapped moisture and allowed for seed germination, so the cattle damaged desert can restore itself. Basically, the land has also been destroyed because of cattle and whatever, the bandicoots, in a way or the other, they're also helping restoring the environment by digging and all that. Okay, so basically the rat like creature, they go into the earth, and they basically make it more fertile, for seed germination and so on and so forth, right? And last part says they have a new nickname, a flattering one. First of all, let's understand who are they? The bandicoots. I'm 100% sure they're talking about the bandicoot. But this is an important point. You should keep this thing in mind. They have a nickname, a flattering one this time. We call them the ecosystem engineers. Peddler says. Now we know why they are being called ecosystem peddlers, because they're helping in restoration of the landscape itself, right? Or maybe giving us a rebirth sign or something like that. So let's read the first question and try and understand. According to the text, the western barred bandicoots now have a flattering name because they have. So they have, first of all, the question seems an interesting one, but the only thing which can help sort of, irritate you is that, are the western barred bandicoots the same bandicoots that they have given a flattering name? This is one of those ideas. And so you just need to quickly go back and check the first line, because that is where we are getting some information about this thing, the introduction to the bandicoots. And you see in the first para, they are saying that these bandicoots are sometimes called as zebra rats. Silly looking or not, the zebra rat are smallest bandicoot, commonly known as the western barred bandicoot. So actually, if I pay attention, it's true that it is the same zebra rat they are bandicoots. That is the western barred bandicoot. And the bandicoots, or the rat-like creatures, they are basically called as the ecosystem engineers. Why are they being called as an ecosystem engineer? Let's read the first option. Grown fivefold in terms of population. They are being called ecosystem engineers. Is it because of that? Okay, flattering name. Remember, ecosystem engineer is the flattering name. Is it because they have grown fivefold in terms of population? No, has got nothing to do with population. It has got everything to do with the ecosystem restoration in some sense, if you have understood. Led a revival in the preserving of the species. I'll not even consider this. Aided in altering an arid environment. Now, this is something that I would keep in my purview. So, they have in a way helped. Remember, in the last line, they are saying that whenever they do their constant digging, the bandicoot trap moisture for seed germination and all that. This thing. So, yeah, they are in a way aiding, helping the altering of an arid environment. So could be. Let's read. Led to a surge and increase of rainfall. They have in any ways not helped in rainfall. This thing, rainfall have helped them to grow. So not true, not true. This has to be my answer. Okay, let's go to the next question. Which one of the following option does not represent the characteristics of the WB bandicoot? Basically, Western barred bandicoots. That is not. Please pay attention to these words, because they're very, very, very important. Not represent the characteristic of a. So all of them will represent the characteristic, but one of the option will not be a characteristic of a bandicoot. Let's read. They look like rat, but have with a baby pouch with slender snout, long nose. Obviously, so this is a characteristic of the western barred bandicoot. So out of the question. The shallow diggers having an elongated muzzle. Muzzle, again talking about the long nose rather. And shallow diggers. Shallow diggers. Do we have any information on shallow digging? Actually, if you go back to the para number, I have read the shallow digging somewhere. Yeah. This is para number 3. Mothers carrying, right? So mothers carrying for food, and they dig shallow, camouflage shelter. So that is in para number 2 in the description part. So yes, they do indeed shallow. They are shallow diggers with an elongated muzzle. So is that characteristic goes out of the picture. Long thin nose, black stripe back, pouch for joeys. Joeys, I think, is the offspring that they are calling. So again, this is also a characteristic, goes out. The last option, however, says smallest black striped marsupials that uses camouflage. And this word marsupial, this is the only reason why this is like not even getting considered. Smallest black, smallest, not nowhere they have said smallest and stuff. Striped marsupial that uses camouflage and I mean, marsupial is the only word I'm saying. It's not a characteristic, because they don't use camouflage and dig. Marsupials, smallest striped marsupial, no. So I hope you understand my problem, that they're not the smallest black striped marsupial that uses camouflage and they dig. They do dig, they do camouflaging, they do live in camouflaging shelters, but they're definitely not smallest black striped. They are, some of the bandicoots are zebra style, but not all of them. Or specifically speaking, that is not a characteristic. The text uses the word exclosures because wild deserts has adopted a. Okay, interesting. This is something that we have to go back. So let's go back to the exclosure part. I think in para number 5, this is para 5, you can see we are using this word exposure, right? And exclosures rather. So the imported bandicoots occupy two fenced. I am hoping you can see it. Okay. The imported bandicoots occupy two fenced exclosures cleared off of invasive rabbits and of feral cats. A third fenced area contained the program's WTZ, where two other rare marsupials, billybees and mulagars, a fearsome fuzzball known for sucking the brains out of this thing. Uh, okay, so there are two other over there, but we are talking about the exclosure. The exclosure is because of clearing of the rabbits, the invasive rabbits, and of the feral cats. Okay, this is perhaps one of the reasons why they have kept the exclosure. But there is a fenced area also in the WTZ, that is for these two rare marsupials, the billybees and the mulgaras, but they do share a terrain controlled with control number of cats. Let's go back and read the options, right? The exclosure. Restoring the cattle damaged desert to a green landscape, definitely not. This is not the reason for the exclosures. Okay. Excluding animals to make the island predator free. Now, is it, I mean, we have a reason that, the invasive rabbits and the feral cats were excluded. So I'm just keeping it for the time being. Uh, Ridding the main, please read this properly. Ridding the main desert of feral cats and large billybees. First of all, large billybees is a part of the WTZ, the western whatever, the two other species. So definitely not one of the reasons. Also, if you read a little carefully, in the fifth para, you will realize that they share the terrain with the control number of cats. So it cannot definitely be that they are ridding the desert of feral cats. So 3 is definitely out of the picture. Barring the entry of invasive species. Now invasive species, I am calling it a possible contender only because invasive rabbits and feral cats are barred to some extent because of these exposures. So that is one of the things. And excluding animals to make the island predator free. Are they looking to make the, if they were if they would have been looking to make the island predator free, they would have just taken all of the cats out. Why are they even saying that they are sharing this thing with this thing? I mean, so definitely not. So the correct answer choice would be option number 4. This was fairly easy reading comprehension as such. Which of the following statement provides a gist of this passage? So this gist is basically and everything, okay, that we can uh, get about this passage. Let's see. The negligent attitude of the British colonists toward these bandicoot, evidenced by the name given to them, led to their annihilation. There is a restoration process going on, and the restoration process is to some extent doing good. So there is no annihilation that has happened. And British negligent and whatever is not the central idea. Yes, the Britishers made their whatever efforts in order to do a decline in the species population, but it's not annihilated. So definitely this is not something that I would be remotely calling uh, as my statement that provides the gist of the passage. A type of bandicoots was nearly wiped out by the invasive species. Now, in the invasive species, we have many species: rabbit, feral cats. Even the colonists also could be called as invasive species, right? But rescuers now pin hopes on a remnant island population. So, seems like a decent option. I'll keep it. Okay. Marsupials are going extinct due to colonial era transformation of the ecosystem, which also destroyed natural vegetation. Yeah, it's true that they have some marsupials have gone extinct. Okay, but they are not talking about the restoration. So this is definitely not giving the complete gist. Just taking one aspect of the passage and showing the extremes maybe. So just going for the extremes doesn't seem like my answer choice. The onslaught of animals such as the cattle, rabbit, house cat brought in by the British led to the extinction of the western barred bandicoot. It's true, part of it is true, but I'm again neglecting it because it's not giving you the complete picture, which of course needs to talk about the restoration process also. So just for that reason, I think option number two has to be my answer, and these two others won't fit in into the this thing. So I hope you did enjoy it. You have seen how I like to solve the reading comprehension passages. I like to read it completely, and I like to basically make a lot of sense for these passages. So yeah, that's it. Thank you. If you're interested in 2025 personalized classes, you can get in touch with me. We are starting our CAT 2025 batches. So yeah, good luck.